Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. What's up, guys? Excuse me. This is Freddy over here. This is Fred. Use my random historical figure of the week. I say of the week, but I just do it randomly, honestly. All right. I don't know how I haven't done. I was going through, like, I've done so many History Matters recommendations, or most of them actually I just wanted to check out. I've reacted to so many History Matters videos that I'm getting to the point where, like, I have to bring up my History Matters playlist and go to the History Matters channel and just make sure I haven't seen it before. I don't want to, like, get 3 minutes or, like, 2 minutes into a video and realize, oh, wait, I've already seen this. And I haven't seen this one, which is crazy because usually I like to react to anything sort of British, American related. All right, so let's get into it. If you're new to the channel, my name's Connor. All the things. Just do all the things. Let's go.
It would be an understatement to say that
Original link in the top description below.
Britain and the USA's relationship got off to a rocky start. In 1812, Britain and America were at war, but just over a century later, they were fighting shoulder to shoulder in World War I. Which obviously raises the question, when did Britain and America become allies? There had to be a point where both went from actively disliking each other to working alongside each other. Now, before continuing, it's important to note that even in the immediate aftermath of independence, America and Britain still had strong economic ties. This isn't to say that things were always great.
I learned that a few days ago. I didn't realize just how quickly the British recognized America after the Revolutionary War.
Between the two, and there were some pretty major conflicts of interest in the years after the War of 1812 finished. The first, and perhaps the most obvious, was the Monroe Doctrine, established in 1823. This was when the United States, by threat of military intervention, declared an end to any new European colonial adventures in the Americas. And for Britain, this was potentially a problem because it had economic interest in South America. In reality, though, it wasn't too much of a problem at all. Because
you guys ever look at South? You know how was it Mercator maps? I have a globe over there actually. South America is huge. If you know, I can't see if. Sorry if you can't. South America's big.
Because when
I know my wisdom statement of the day.
New European colonial adventures in the Americas. And for Britain, this was potentially a problem because it had economic interest in South America.
One sec, I gotta turn on the light. Go.
In reality, though, it wasn't too much of a problem at all, because in 1833 it landed a force on the Falkland Islands and America did nothing. In 1842, the US did warn Britain against interference in Hawaii, which Britain did heed because America's international power was certainly growing. And it was this fact that America was a rapidly growing great power whose interests could no longer be ignored, which would dominate Anglo-American relations for the following century. So the next major event which could have changed the Anglo-American dynamic was the American Civil War, which broke out in 1861. Britain had already abolished slavery at this point, and so you would think that it would have preferred the Union over the Confederacy. But you'd be wrong. Now, Britain had no great affection for the Confederacy in its slaveholding practices. Its preferential treatment was purely economic, mostly due to cotton imports. Britain did consider formally recognizing the Confederacy, and Anglo-American relations were severely harmed by what's called the Trent Affair. This was where the US government seized a ship with Confederate diplomats headed for Britain, which to Britain looked like the USA telling it who it could and could not speak to. In the end, cooler heads prevailed and Britain didn't get involved, although it did construct a very powerful warship, the CSS Alabama, for the Confederacy, and after the Civil War was over, Britain paid compensation to the United States. Thus, only 50 years away from World War I, Britain and America still didn't really care much for each other. So what changed this? Well, relations actually started to improve during Britain's border dispute with Venezuela in 1895. This developed into somewhat of a crisis, and the US intervened and arbitrated, siding mostly with Britain. For Britain, America had conducted itself in a well-mannered fashion and given Britain most of what it had wanted.
So really just throwing the Monroe Doctrine out the door.
For Britain, America had conducted itself in a well-mannered fashion and given Britain most of what it had wanted. And for America, by accepting American arbitration, Britain had yielded its right to influence South America. The other reason for Anglo-American...
I'll just talk about the Monroe Doctrine for a second. Imagine... I'm sure other countries might do it if they had giant oceans on either side of them and relatively weak countries to their north and south that could ever really threaten them. But imagine just telling every other nation, like, This whole half of the world over here, or these two continents, you can't touch them. Like, no one would ever, like, abide by that.
Rapprochement was simple, converging interests. America had emerged from its civil war a more centralized industrial power, and after its defeat of Spain in 1898, it possessed a global empire too. And for Britain, things were rapidly changing as well. Its empire and global position was being threatened by Russia and the newly formed Germany. Britain had long practiced a policy of isolationism with respect to the European powers, but since they too were industrializing, this had the potential to threaten Britain's position. Thus, her most natural ally seemed to be the United States, since it was half a world away and had its own sphere of influence, plus they spoke the same language and shared many values.
True.
It was at the turn of the 20th century under President Theodore Roosevelt that America and Britain really started to become friends, particularly with respect to one foreign policy stance. They didn't like Germany. This agreement allowed for Britain to move its fleet away from its Caribbean colonies back to Britain to defend itself from Germany, while security in the Caribbean would fall to the US. After the First World War...
So, again, I'm not a historian, but it seems like a lot of the 19th and 18th centuries have a lot to do with France. I mean, Portugal and Spain are just not what they were. And it has a lot to do with just, I'm going to leave Russia out of this, but just, actually, no, I'm going to bring Russia back into it. Like France and the UK, the British Empire and the French Empire seem to be the two, like, big boys on campus, you know, and like solidified world powers that really could only bicker between each other. And it seems like Germany and the United States, and Russia, I guess too, but Germany and the United States are both trying to push themselves into that upper echelon.
War broke out, Germany's actions such as U-boat attacks on American shipping and the Zimmermann telegram, combined with the fact that if Britain and France lost the war, they wouldn't be able to pay their American loans back, assured US intervention on their side. And from that point onwards, both the US and UK were largely in the same camps, barring a couple of mishaps here and there. I hope you enjoyed this episode and thank you for watching with
Thank you for making. Thank you, Patreons. Awesome channel. Go check them out. Great video. Learned a lot. Come back with another one soon. See you guys next time.